just having the conversation rather than, defining a role. You're the parent, you're the caregiver, you're the speech therapist, and that's okay. Really the goal here is just to have a really good conversation. So what I'd like to do now is just go around and do a share back about kind of what you guys, the questions, how you answered those questions on that sheet of paper, things like that, what you noticed, things like that. Does anybody want to go first? Can I pick on you guys? Do you care going first? Oh, perfect, thank you.
So we have Lupe, and basically Lupe's goal is about eating and participating in breakfast, lunch, and dinner by sitting with the group for at least like 5 minutes and being offered different types of food, meaning something that she can potentially pick up, Cheerios or fruit, anything like that, and then also being spoon fed as well, so that we do know she is getting some nutrients in there. And so the team that we thought would be helpful with this would be obviously parents, teachers, and potentially a feeding specialist, just to kind of understand, is she maybe having gagging problems or problems with her tongue, maybe that she's having a hard time swallowing, whatever it may be, but just kind of that medical professional side of it. And then also a doctor we thought would be good to have maybe one of the feeding specialists or PTs go to the actual doctor's appointment to make sure that the child is gaining weight. And I think that kind of, if she is, then we don't have to push too hard, but if she is malnourished, that's something that we do want to focus on, and especially from the nutrients standpoint. So we kind of really talked a lot about that data collection that we talked about over here, just keeping a notebook and journal. And so just observing her first, again, what she is actually eating, if she is, and then stuff like that. We thought ultimately that would help us to determine moving forward what to offer her more of or lack thereof, things like that. Because if she is eating a lot of like puffs, say, that's probably not the most nutritious to introduce more foods. And then after continued support, again, kind of going back to our goal, we're hoping that she'll be able to sit for the entire lunch or snack lunch period with her class, and then at home as well. And then follow-ups we thought were really big, and especially keeping the doctor in the loop. So following up maybe once a month, but just checking in and making sure the weight's on track and that everything's progressing.
I really like how you included some of the people involved into different aspects that might not be their sole focus, like you said, the feeding specialist, bringing her into kind of that assessment piece. Is she gaining weight or is she not, collecting that data? I like how you did that, taking those roles and applying them to different roles, so everyone really feels like they're a part of the team rather than just, okay, here's my job, it's all done.
Right, or just one person, dictating. I found in my experience it's helpful to have a whole team, especially because sometimes we're not considered medical professionals, but if you bring a medical professional, sometimes that'll help.
Carry a little, yeah, a little bit of weight.
Just a hard pill for us to swallow, but
I didn't do that on purpose, I'm really sorry. Do you guys want to go next?
Sure.
Who was your child?
We have Casey for his team. We have the parents, the caregiver specialist, because he's had a referral from ASQ and all that, and the directors, because we noticed in some of the paperwork that the caregivers aren't really involving themselves with remedying his behavior, that the specialist could sit down with those four, the director, specialist, caregivers, and the parents, and set the goals. His goal right now is to have a specialist or the caregiver providing close care, small groups, and encouraging parallel play with his peers, because he is avoiding that a lot. He throws tantrums if he's too close to other students. When he's given directions, he throws tantrums. And in his tantrums, he hurts himself, he kicks, he screams. It's very violent. So he's to do parallel play and the visual schedule to help him transition, and maybe have an emotional check-in chart because he is very verbal. And then the main goal is that 3 times a day he will be engaged in parallel play for up to 10 minutes, and that's for 4 weeks. For the function of the behavior we discussed, that we're thinking that he's avoiding direction and wants to obtain some control in a lot of situations. For our hypothesis, we were discussing that the specialist will meet with the family and the staff to set up short-term goals. That Casey will meet his goal after 4 weeks, being able to have a real life. And then that Casey's support will reduce his tantrums, and the specialists and teachers will be able to meet to go over their observations every week. So, because took on those roles and discussed all that.
Awesome. That was very comprehensive. Good job. Maria, do you want to share back? You and Erica were together.
Yeah, I don't know if we did this.
I'm sure you did it just fine.
We answered the bottom questions, and that's why I think we were confused. But we could kind of use those to answer the top. So for the developing a team, we have Maria, and she's only been in the classroom for 2 weeks. She's currently living with her foster mother, and she's only been in her care for 3 weeks. So she's having a hard time communicating. ESL has little or no language currently. However, so for our team, we decided it would be the foster mom, the teachers, and then also the director, because the director helped in one of the observations of the child. So we decided, since she did one and one of her teachers did one, since it was 2 different perspectives, she should be in on it as well, so she's seen the child. For the personal-centered planning or the goal that we had set for her the last time was noticing other children using toys, because in her vignette, she doesn't even realize there's another body there. So we figured. So we wanted to make sure that she is able to notice the other children by having teachers, be nice to her, and if they see her going towards, kind of stop her beforehand and verbally say, okay, well, I see Johnny's playing with this toy. We cannot have this now, but is there another toy that you do not see on her child nearby and have her go to it? And have her pick something else like that. Since she's only been there for 2 weeks, we thought she might still need to be observed a little longer, only because of her situation with having the new foster parent and being taken from her mother. She got taken from her brothers and sisters and is with 5 other children in the household. So we felt as though because she's not able to regulate her emotions yet, and it seems she still needs a lot of support with that, to keep observing her. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we did this wrong, but
And how old's your child?
16 months.
16 months. No, I really liked how you thought, you thought bringing in another perspective would be a good idea, another person who's observed the child, obviously, because those observations can be specific to each individual person. So I think it was good how you guys went that. Good job. You did a great job. Does this table in the back want to share? Who's your child?
We had Quan, and he's a 3.5-year-old with a couple different things, but what we focused on for this role-playing game was his aggressive nature and hitting. And what we kind of did, we had play therapists, teachers, I'm mother, father, and the director. So we kind of like role-played like almost like an initial meeting with, it would have been like an initial meeting with parents, and where to go from there. I think as a team, we decided after the parents were convinced that there was maybe something he needed to work on, even though we didn't think so at first, that we would just choose one thing, and it was the hitting and aggressiveness, and we would work from there. And the play therapist, it was decided that he qualified for those services, so she would come in, and we kind of just set the stage as to this is what needs to be done, and we were going to collect data and then check in with mom and dad in another week and get a really specific path for them to go on. And it was kind of mostly about convincing mom and dad, like, we have to focus and work on one problem, and this is what it's going to be.
So working towards And then we have one last group. You guys wanna share?
We did not role play at all, we just talked. But we had Ella, she's 4.5 years old. She recently was brought to a Head Start program. And after a few weeks in the program, the educators had some concerns about her lack of verbal skills and interaction with other children. She wasn't playing with any of the other kids. They really noticed a difference between her verbal skills and the stepbrother. So they filled out an ASQ SE, the parents did, and she was way above the cutoff. And most of the red flags in that had to do with her interacting with other people, wanting to be held or cuddled, eye contact, and those are all red flags there. And so then they referred her to Childmind, in which she qualified for services for communication as well as social emotional development. So our team would include both parents who live in separate homes, the caregiver, and whatever specialists are being brought on board, which hasn't quite happened. In the environmental scale, there wasn't one from Dad, but Mom had filled out that she was having challenges redirecting the child and giving her appropriate behavior, and also not setting any rules or discipline. So we thought we, as a team could help the mom, or as educators, and to set up some visuals at home, especially with her lack of verbal skills. A lot of kind of choice boards and first med and visual schedules, and help her get a routine at home. And then at school, there were some communication goals. One we'd written earlier about being able to express her wants and needs, whether it's verbally or with sign language. And embedding some of those friendship opportunities, some buddy play and
Intentional.
she really doesn't like to be near other kids, so a challenge, but not quite to that level yet.
Awesome. Well, good job. Thank you very much for, everyone very much for sharing back on those. You guys have spent a lot of time with these children now, and I really think you've done a really good job to, understand the child and to kind of get into each of those individual roles. So I think you guys are doing a really good job. So like I said, we're gonna do 2 activities. We have one more activity today using your vignette. So if you guys want, just kind of hang here for right now. We'll go through a couple more slides, and then once we're done with that second activity, then you guys can go ahead and go back to your seats. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. So next we're gonna move on to talking about the 6 different steps of developing a behavior support plan. Like I said, there are 6 different steps, and they can be seen all right up here. Today we're gonna focus on steps 1 and 2, building that team, who's involved in that team, as well as we're gonna do an activity, like I said, on goal setting. It was really great that all of you brought up your goal and talked about your goals, and we're gonna do an activity with that in a little while. Steps 3 through 6 are gonna be identified before the end of all of our sessions, so they're gonna be identified later in 17 and 18. So like I said, that first step is building a behavior support team. You guys did a really great job, not only in the 4 corners activity, but also in that last activity, identifying who could be involved. And I know we kind of talked about how that can look different depending on each different child. I don't have to tell you guys that each child comes from different situations, different family styles, so it's important to keep that in mind. One of the biggest things you want to remember is that communication with the family, especially about the process, the beginning, the middle, the end, after it ends, it's something that's very, very important. You want to consider that all the people that impact a child on a daily basis, which we just kind of talked about. And then last but not least, when it comes to developing that team, you want to make sure to formally invite the members to the team, of course, based on the family's permission and the family's approval. Like I said, this can be a tough thing for families. Talking about that their child isn't perfect and might be exhibiting some challenging behaviors, that can be tough. I don't know if you know any parents, but sometimes parents might have a little trouble accepting that their child might need a little extra support. And another piece to that is formally inviting those members. I think it's important to validate this process. Validate what you're working towards, validate what you've identified in the past. You know, you don't want to say, hey, can you come to this meeting? We need some of your thoughts. You know, you want to formally ask people that you would like to be on this team. Formally ask them to be involved because their input is important, and it's important to the goals that you're going to set up together. So we talked a little bit about goal setting today, but the second step in the behavior support plan process was person-centered planning goal setting. What this planning process does is provides a process for bringing the team together to discuss their vision and their dreams for the child. And it was, you guys had Quan, right? Quan's group did a really good job of making sure that they got everyone on the same page. And I believe it was mom and dad that might have been struggling to get on the same page as everyone else. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to get everyone together to understand, so everyone understands what the goals are, what the dreams are, what the vision is. Because without everyone being on the same page, I mean, it's not going to work. It's going to go a lot more smoothly. People are going to work together if people are on the same page. I think the same thing can be applied, you know, throughout life. If you and your co-teacher aren't on the same page about an activity or about zoning like we talked about, what's going to happen?
It's not gonna work.
It's not going to work. It's going to become chaotic and difficult. So bringing the team together to make sure they're on the same page is really, really important. Quan's group, I think you guys did a great job of that. And this is something that I know we've talked about a bunch today, but it's talking about family partnership. Talking about engaging and maintaining those positive relationships. That relationship building, the relationships that you build with any of the team members, especially parents, is super, super, super important. If people don't have the same expectations, there could be a lot of frustration or confusion, which from the family standpoint, this already could be a process that might be a little bit overwhelming. So building those positive relationships, those trusting relationships, is really important. It's easier to include families in all aspects related to their child when they're valued and appreciated. I think that we've touched on this a lot today. We will, is it on this slide? Yes, this next bullet point says that families, their contribution may and usually has a very large impact on the success of the plan. So, I mean, I wouldn't be so confident to say that every single time the family has a major impact, but would you agree with me that a lot of the time the family has a major impact? They know their child the best. They see them during difficult times, such as when they wake up in the morning and they need to get dressed, or when it's bedtime or bath time. They see them for all of those difficult times during the day, so it's really important to show families how their input is valued and how it is important to the whole process. And then of course families may be included to the extent that they are comfortable and it fits their needs. Of course, if families don't feel comfortable sharing about what's going on in the home, you know, you would never force them, you have to tell me. You want families to be comfortable, you want that trusting relationship to be built where families feel comfortable sharing with you. You, this case being, you know, the teacher or the child care provider or something of that nature. I know you guys are role playing with that. So we've talked a lot about how important it is to listen to families. And the next what we're going to do is we're going to watch these two videos, and does anyone recognize these? We watched these back in session 6. I do believe this was about Brendan, but these videos here in what we're talking about right now, at least for me, they become much more powerful because it's a perfect example of a family that might have been struggling and how important it is to get their input. So we're going to watch these videos really quick. There are two.